Three takeaways from Atlanta United's 3-1 loss to Necaxa in Phase 1 of whatever it's called, League's Cup. I don't know if it's Phase 1, Match Day 1, or Match Day 1 of Phase 1 or whatever, but Atlanta United lost again in League's Cup. What else is new? Takeaway number 1, same old, same old. Atlanta United does something positive, but then all of a sudden it kind of goes the wrong way, and we saw that on a corner kick that led to Necaxa's second goal. And then Mihai bails out Derek Williams and makes a horrible pass to a Necaxa player. Corner kick for Necaxa, and they score right off the corner. Necaxa player rises up for a header, knocks it in past Brad Gizan's 2-1, and then they add another goal late on to pretty much ice, well, not pretty much, but ice the game way for Necaxa. Nothing different, Tyler, than what we've usually seen from this team, I guess.
No, I mean, it started off and it felt like it had more legs than maybe the Seattle match or the matches before. Atlanta was playing well. Admittedly, they were playing well. They created tons of chances. The lack of finishing ability is murdering this team. But even more than that, I mean, the defense, they fell asleep again. And it's frustrating to watch because, this, we talked about it before, but this was a clean slate. This was an opportunity for this team to come out in a tournament, shake off all the bad voodoo, juju, whatever from MLS and just get something. And it started off looking like, all right, well, that might actually be going that direction. They give up a goal, but they come back. You go into the half 1-1, and it's like, all right, you have a shot. And then they didn't get bit by that post, halftime 15-minute bug, but then it all fell apart later on in the match, which arguably might even be worse because then they don't have time to bail themselves out of it. And so, yeah, it's just essentially same story, different day. Yeah.
I would argue that the second half bad juju or whatever we're calling it, it did kind of strike a bit because in the first half you had an Atlanta United that was very much on the front foot, was out doing Necaxa in the attack. They had, I believe, it was 10 shots to 3 for Atlanta. Like, they were just constantly pinning Necaxa back, getting into the box, creating chances, but they couldn't finish any of them. And it was frustrating because, you get the ball in the box in a very high XG area, and then, you sky the ball or it hits the post or it's saved or something. And it just, there's a saying in Spanish that I'll just go ahead and translate, but it says, when those who don't score the goals, watch them get scored. And Atlanta did a lot of watching today, watching Necaxa score 3 goals on them that, frankly, if Atlanta had taken some of its chances, they might have actually won this game. Might have, at the very least tied it, because I think there were several chances that had to go in. Miggy had so many opportunities from inside the box, from the left, from the right, from the center. Just chances to ice the game. Can't do it. Latte comes in, fresh legs, and we'll get to him in a sec, but it's just not good enough. And again, this team, just like in MLS play, it cannot put together a complete performance, and that's what came back to bite them in the butt today.
Well, that takes us to takeaway number 2. You mentioned Latte, you mentioned Miggy. Just Miggy, I felt like, was just snake bitten throughout the night. I mean, he should have had at least, like you said, a goal on the evening, but he comes up empty. I think he hits the post once. He just misses the goal, I think, another time. So you can make the argument that he could have had a brace or at the very least an assist. Let's talk about that. He finds Latte in space. Latte, not quite 1v1 with the keeper, but has a step on the defender, the Necaxa defender. And what he typically does is just cut back instead of just running straight toward goal. I feel like he's trying to overcompensate for the defender, trying to make too much happen to shake off the defender. It's just like he doesn't trust himself to just continue to make that goalward run and finish past the keeper. And it's just frustrating because, you pay $22 million for very little return. And I think that, I will say this. I mean, he had a hard hand on the goal the other night. He had the penalty against TFC, but outside of that, since April, I think is correct. March, since March, he's not scored a goal from open play, and that's just very, very concerning. And tonight was just another example of Latte not getting the given the performance we need from him.
Yeah, and I think talking about Latte and Miggy both, it's a confidence issue. It really is, and I think it feels like if they were to just snag one of these, and I said it in the pre-match, that would go a long way to just getting that antidote for this snake bite that you're talking about. And it's both of them. Ronnie Dyla in the press conference kind of spoke about how with Miggy specifically, it's a little bit more about how like his positioning, like he's now getting into spaces that he wasn't getting into earlier in the season. So that's progression, but now it's a matter of you have to finish. I mean, like when you look at the way that Miggy played tonight, the opportunities that he had, it is not that's unlike Miggy. For some of those to not go in. I mean, you had two off the top of my head that I can think in the first half that were just wide. He had one that easily should have been a goal in the second, plus the one off the bar in the second. Like that's four. Just thinking off the top of my head, and I know there's probably more than that. And then the Latte Lath miss. I mean, it's just he's had one of those opportunities in the past two games each, and he just it feels like you've seen him in highlight reels over in Europe. Like he scored these, like in his sleep. But I think it's this whole team right now. The confidence is just shot, and until somebody in the attack snags one like that, it's probably going to continue to be that way.
Yeah, Henry.
Yeah, it's just weird with these DPs. I mean, you said that it was unlike Miggy to have that many opportunities, that those shots in those spots, and not get a single goal. It seems a lot like Miggy this season, and I don't know if it's he's just a different guy at this point. 6 years at Newcastle does that to you or something, or if it's just like y'all said, maybe just the effects of this season just going completely awry and not anywhere close to what anyone expected at the beginning of the season. And then as far as Latte Latte, it just has to be better. I don't know what else to say that we haven't said, but before, when he wasn't getting the chances that he was brought in to finish, you kind of said, okay, maybe you give him a pass because he's not really getting those through balls. He's starting to get the through balls now, and he's not doing anything with them. He's scored these, like you said, in Europe tons of times. Can't do it here. I mean, come on. You're facing pretty much the same thing that you're used to facing. A little bit different. But it's maybe the same thing. And you can't, like, you're brought in for your pace, and you can't outrun these guys. You were brought in as one of the, no, not one of, the most expensive striker in the league.
Yeah.
And you cannot finish when you're in the box, when you're at the top of the box, and you have these opportunities one-on-one or it baffles me that this team's big signing of this season is looking to be a bust.
Yeah, and just kind of building off that, I'll add 2 points there. Number one, it said that championship football, English championship football is comparable to MLS in some respects. So you figure that it will essentially, in some respects, be a like for like transition for Latte Latin. Certainly has not been anything close to that. I'll add two just quickly. Miranchuk had a pretty solid game. I mean, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we saw some promising things from him. I wish that we saw that in the entire season. I wish that we saw that throughout his entirety of time here at Atlanta United. But of course, he has to go in the first half and was very active in the second half. And I really liked what I saw from him mostly today from Alexi. Takeaway number three, fitness, and something that Dyla has mentioned so many times. We're trying to put a finger on why this team still struggles with fitness, why you can't get across the finish line. Is it conditioning? Is it just work rate? Is it something they're doing on the training ground? Are the regimens that they're putting in on the training ground off days? Are they working? Things like that go a long way in helping teams win. I'm not saying it's the only thing that is hurting Atlanta United, but it's come up so many times this season, and you wonder, essentially where with 25, 20. I know this isn't an MLS match, but you're essentially 25 matches plus into the season. You're still talking about you can't finish. You're still talking about you're getting tired. You're losing fitness at the end of matches. Brad Guzan was asked why that's happening. He said that he didn't know. That I feel like that's a key part of why Atlanta hasn't been able to be at their best. I'll call out Derek Williams. He's just his form has just been shocking over the past number of weeks, if not months. Part of that is fitness, but yeah, it's just something that we've seen from the entire team this entire season, and for some reason, it still hasn't clicked.
Yeah, I I think it's very interesting considering over the past few years how deep and detailed Atlanta United has made their kind of physio department, and they have one of the guys that quite literally wrote the book on this kind of stuff working for the club now, and it feels like their conditioning has been worse this year than it's ever been. And I think it's easy to lump in like just the conditioning and guys returning from injury. And obviously, we know Stian Gregerson coming back. Derek is still coming back. But Dyla talked about it again today in the press conference. He talked about the fitness specifically, and he said, this drop off, it happened again, and the thing to look at is the fitness. It was the inability for this team to essentially see the game out. And when you can't see the game out because of the fitness, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's some caveats here. Like again, coming back from injury, you don't have a lot of depth as it stands right now with center backs that can come in and play. But then when Brad Guzan is asked a similar question and essentially says like, kind of admittedly kind of danced around it a little bit, but is like, I don't know why some guys are feeling like they can't just essentially push through. And I mean, it was a very, very, very delicate kind of way to answer. I think he's not trying to call anybody out, but I think it was also very telling that I think maybe some of these players, and this is part of the change that's happening right now with the summer transfer window, some of these players have got to dig a little deeper and figure it out.
All right.
Yeah, you see it on the field that after a certain point in the second half, you just see the legs starting to get heavy. They're not moving as quick as they are. Their reactions aren't as quick, and you understand because these guys are professional athletes and they're running their legs off for 60, 70, sometimes up to 90 minutes. And so it's tough to really, I guess, look at it and judge that performance based on their talent alone, because again, in the first half they look great when they're completely fresh and they're ready to go. They look like one of the best teams in this league, and yet they cannot continue that because, like y'all said, maybe the fitness is an issue.
Cameo by
Doug Robertson walking by.
But I think it is something that they have to analyze, because if that is one of the main contributing factors to this team not being able to carry on their first half performances into their second halves, then they have to look at what's going into that preparation, right, for the match days, the conditioning, how these players are feeling going into these games, especially when you have more than one game a week, right? Like with Leagues Cup, you have a game today, you play on Saturday, you have to travel for that, and then a game on Wednesday. So there's very short rests for a team that already doesn't have a whole lot of depth at key positions, which is concerning. That is a big concern. And now maybe, I mean, if they do end up exiting this Leagues Cup in the first phase, which seems very, very likely, they'll have a little bit of a rest, I guess, before just jumping right back into league play. But yeah, definitely have to look at the fitness, see what's going on there. And yeah, I think maybe if that is really the case, then maybe these subs need to come a little bit faster. They need to kind of take place sooner, because I mean, you can't have guys that are at 50% out there, you know what I'm saying? Or even 60, especially against these teams like Necaxa, who know how to take advantage of that and press and really cause problems for you, because they look sharp at every moment. And it might be different for them because, their rosters are constructed differently. They actually have decent depth, but yeah, it's something that this team needs to really look at going forward.
So Atlanta United losing again 3-1 tonight to Necaxa at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Next match Saturday against Pumas in Orlando. You have to travel, like Henry said. The backyard of the Benz on Wednesday against Atlas and Gonzalo Pineda. At that point, Atlanta United may be out of League's Cup, mathematically eliminated by the time Gonzalo Pineda Atlas come here next Wednesday. But we'll see what happens. Like you said, Henry, doesn't look like they will be advancing out of League's Cup really off the back of this loss tonight. I'm at SH Rights on X, SH Rights at bsky.social on Blue Sky. Thank you. SidH.soccer on Instagram and Threads. Tyler, where are you on social media?
ATL Pilgrim everywhere. Blue Sky, Twitter/X, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Henry, where are you on social media?
Yeah. H.A. Higita everywhere.
We are at Scarfs, a letter and Spikes on X, scarfsandspikes.com on Blue Sky, Scarfs and Spikes everywhere else, scarfsandspikes.com, where you can find our coverage of tonight's match. Of course, the match against Pumas coming up on Saturday. Pretty much all of our analysis, insight, and opinion. Like, subscribe, share our content on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.